Hey everyone, it's good to see you. We're getting started in just a minute here. I'm going to get my screen set up for you and we'll get going here in just a minute. All right, so it's noon. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Paul Merrill. I'm a principal software engineer in test at Beaufort Fairmont. We help companies with test automation. That's what we focus on, is functional test automation. So if you need help with that, we help you plan out your test automation and set you up for success. We can do training with test automation. We also have people that can work directly with your team, embedded with your team, to make test automation move forward. We do that with a lot of clients around the US. And as a part of that, we learn a lot about test automation. And so we do these webinars. And for the first year of this, I did every single webinar. I'll be doing the one next month, but I did all of them. And then recently, in the last year or so, I started having folks come on as guests. And today we have Andrew Krug, the lazy coder he's known as, and he is one of the foremost experts on Selenium in the US. He's well known for that. I can't wait to hear this, but before we get started, a couple things I want to do. If you've joined us before, you may have heard of the B list. So the B list is a way that I like to thank people who are near to Beaufort Fairmont and have done good things for the company and good things for me. These are some folks who I was thinking of this month and that I very much appreciate all their work and all the good things they've done over time. So I just wanted to make sure to call them out. And if you know somebody who should be on the B list, send me a note, paul@beaufortfairmont.com. Upcoming stuff, the next webinar is going to be on the 24th of September. So mark your calendar for that. I'm going to be at a number of events in the fall here, STPCon and a couple of others. If you're going to be in any of these locations around those dates, ping me and let's get together. Let's have a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever and hang out and get to know each other. If you have challenges with test automation, we can sit down face to face and spend some time talking through them. If you're going to be at one of these events, make sure to reach out to me either through that email address I just gave you, paul@beaufortfairmont.com, or on Twitter, dpaulmerrill. So STPCon, we are sponsoring it. They have given us a code for you to save 10%. So if you want to be in DC in October, and go to STPCon, save 10%, use our code BFSTPCONF18, save 10%, and it helps us. You also might be aware that we give away a $50 gift card on this webinar every single month. So stick around to the end of the webinar and you'll have a chance to win. Also, be aware, we just started a 3-day Selenium training and Andrew is actually helping us with this. He is terrific at training with Selenium. If your company needs to ramp up with Selenium training, we're the folks that want to do it for you. This is available in C#, Java, Python. We come out to your site. We work through your world. We do customized delivery of this, so you're actually writing scripts for your application during the training, very hands-on. Learn a lot. It's a terrific class that we've had several customers already do. Looking forward to a couple more this year at least. So if you want to be one of those, go to this URL at the bottom, bftft.com/selenium-training or beaufortfairmont.com/selenium-training, or get these slides from me later. Click on the link. You may have even gotten an email from Ashley about this. So if you've got one of those, reach out to me. There's a form on there to fill out to contact me. Or once again, info@beaufortfairmont.com or email me. So with that said, I want to introduce Andrew. Andrew found his calling early in his career, test automation, where he rightfully earned his nickname, the lazy coder. During his journey, he has built test automation infrastructures at scale for both desktop browsers and mobile devices. In his spare time, he is a Selenium Conference Committee Member and runs the workshop Diving into Selenium at all Selenium conferences. Andrew is now consulting on quality engineering and software development practices at Gingham Consulting and blogs at lazycoder.io. And Andrew, welcome.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks. I'm going to
for that.
share. I'm going to
Awesome.
pass over the baton to you here, and we
Yep.
will get going. Really appreciate you being here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to this. All right, let's see here. All right, share this window. Perfect. There we go. Everyone can see my slides. Perfect.
Looks great.
Excellent. Cool. So, this topic I sort of fell into doing this this way of team synergy, mainly because I was the only test automation engineer for my company, and I would occasionally get somebody else that would join in and help, and I didn't have much time to train them or give them any guidance. So I made sure to make my framework as easy to use as possible so that there is very little overhead for anyone else who's joining the team to get ahead, jumpstart on stuff. As Paul said, I am the lazy coder at lazycoder.io. I got this nickname essentially because whenever I would describe all the stuff I would do, I would just say, yeah, so I'm lazy, so I built a whole CI system so I don't have to click the run button for tests. And I'm so lazy, I did all this other stuff that essentially just made me a whole lot more efficient. So lazy is just the more efficient way of saying efficient. So hence lazy coder. I've been a quality engineer for my entire career, which means all I do is eat, sleep, and I automate stuff, and not necessarily in that order. Generally goes around eating and automating, eating then automating cycles, and then sleep whenever I end up passing out. I am a Selenium Conference Selection Committee Member, and that's always fun to help pick out the conference location venues and the different speakers that will be at each Selenium conference. I also run the Getting Started or Diving into Selenium workshop at Selenium Conferences. And as you said before, I am the principal consultant at Gingham Consulting. So to me, well, obviously this talk is about synergy. Here is a conveniently placed question that I completely forgot to poll people. So everyone in the chat, just quickly send in what synergy means to you.
So if you guys want to use the chat or the questions section from the GoToWebinar control panel, there's a questions area. That's a perfect place to put this.
Yep. All right. So, whoops, kind of works better if I use the right window there. So to me, it means just flat out more efficiency within the team, which also means less back and forth, either through emails or your chat messages. And there's a bunch of different ways that synergy within a team can be done. One of the more common ways is the stand-ups, except to me, that's only what people are doing. And the what isn't the real core of the problem generally whenever it comes to working on large programming projects or complex ones like test automation. It's where are you doing this? Typically, I've seen and done it a bunch myself. I go and I'm trying to build out this new feature, new functionality within the test framework, and it's really sloppy code and it's in one location and one location only. And then I need to use it someplace else, and it's a pain to try and abstract it out and try to figure out how I did it all. So it's more important if you put it in the right spot to begin with. So to me, the where is the most important part, because if everything is located in easy to find spots, then everyone can use it, utilize it, or reuse it for other purposes whenever they need to. And your team can focus on more higher level discussions like how do we want to implement security testing or performance testing or anything like that at a much higher level instead of trying to do low level stuff every single time. And using old school methods, either email or Slack if you're one of the more newer companies or Microsoft Teams, whatever the case may be. Searching through all those documents is always long, painful, and takes forever to find. And you end up debugging your coworker's code. There, it's missing an image there. And that's not fun if you have to try to find where somebody else did a particular piece of functionality to then figure out how to reuse it in my own format. So we're going to start off by doing a whole bunch of stuff a lot easier. So first things up is going to be a proper abstractions. Proper abstractions of anything. So the first question I'm going to ask to everybody is, do you use page objects? Because that will quickly determine.
Can we do the poll? Let's try the poll. We had a couple of them here. So let's see, do you use page objects? This is going to come up on your screen and you'll be able to vote, everyone. So go ahead and vote and we'll see how this turns out. You know, we should have had another option here. We have yes and no, and sometimes we should have had what's a page object.
Yeah, that's true.
That would have been a good one. All right, we've got about 70% of folks have responded here, 73. That's pretty good. I'm going to close the poll. 76%. All right, so let's see what folks said. I'm going to share it real quick.
Yes,
oh, wow.
Sometimes. Cool. Awesome.
Okay. All right.
Curious to know why the reasons are for the sometimes. But in any case, if you don't, you should. Page objects make your life so much easier for many reasons, which I'm not going to really cover in particular in this topic because there's so much other things we could do with abstractions. So make sure I was on the right slide. So for large sites, I come from a Fortune 500-ish background in terms of companies I've worked for, and they've always had very large, cumbersome sites that have way too much functionality on every single page, which generally means that we're in tabs and sub-level heaven, or more often than not heaven, if you catch my drift. Trying to switch between different tabs, between different sub-levels. I've had some bugs that only pop up if you go to one particular sub-tab and then go back to a parent tab, and then to a different sub-tab, and there's like a cookie that got saved that totally ruins everything. These are tricky to deal with, especially with test automation frameworks, because when you start digging into the code bases for a lot of these, they're thousands of lines long to do stuff. And whenever you open up one of those files and you see the 1,200 lines open up in this file, you feel like you've entered Dante's circle of hell, and abandon all hope, all ye who enter here, because this is just going to be a very painful process you're about to go through trying to add functionality to it, or add features, or try to debug whatever happens. It's also easy to put new items into the wrong spot, which is clearly going to make your day a whole lot worse. So we're going to make it a KISS, which I'm hoping everybody here knows what the KISS is. It's keep it simple, and then another word. And we're going to do that by respecting the hierarchy of the pages. And to use it, we're going to put all the different tabs into separate files. So when we put each tab into their own different file and we reference them all correctly, we know that all the content for this one tab is located within one file. So let me switch over to code. Let's see if this one. There we go. All right, cool. So here I have a very, very simple framework that we have pages, we have a package for pages, we have a package for tests. And here in the pages, we have two simple top-level packages for different pages, ones that are authenticated and the public pages. You can't name it public, so I have to go with the no auth for it. This page is a base class that gets inherited by all the different pages that has a bunch of different functionality in use with Selenium. So for tabs, though, we're going to go and we're going to look at this admin base. All right, there we go. So here's the admin page. So this sort of application, you just log in and you land on this admin page. And we're going to switch to a settings tab. And the settings tab is going to have multiple tabs underneath it. So here we're going to click on the button that says go to the settings page. And here we have the settings base, which, let me go back to the, here we have the settings page. Here's the settings base. Here's a general settings page, which is the first one you land on, but then there's different settings for calls, and we can do multiple levels here. When I look, I can show it to you why. There we go. So here is the general settings. This is the general settings. This is the settings base. So at this point, you're into the settings of an application. And here we have two main ones, go to call settings or go to general settings. And all they do is just go to different page objects here. Here we have call settings, base page, and general settings. We'll just look at the call settings. So here we have two other lower level tabs that are audio and video call page settings, which I know this looks a little convoluted to a degree, but as you can see, this call settings page extends the settings base. Ditto with the video settings page, does the exact same thing. So to see what that actually allows you to do, let's jump over here. Not that. So here we have login as a user. We're going to switch to settings. We're going to go to the call settings tab, switch to the general settings tab, and as you can see, I can switch between these whenever I want, however I want. Let me just filter this out. So here we're on the call settings page, and as you can see, all the different methods that I'm allowed to go to. I can go to audio or video. I can go back to the parent tab, general settings tab, or a different other form as well.
Hey, Andrew, I just lost your audio. Andrew, we all lost your audio, so I'm not sure. It sounds
on the top level tab, you can then go to.
Are you there? Hey, we lost your audio for a bit there, Andrew.
Oh, okay. How far back?
Right in there, I think when you were introducing that page. Yep.
Oh, introducing this page. Oh. Oh wait, this
sorry,
one?
it's been about 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Okay, 10 seconds. Okay, I'm not too bad there. So with this settings page, settings base here, we just have a few simple methods that go to top level settings. The top level settings then have different declarations to the different sublevels for it. And by extending the base one, we can easily switch between them whenever we want for any of the settings. Because I don't know, to me, I write it out so that anyone can use the framework however they want. If we know this very particular set of steps reproduces the bug, and it's happening because it's switching between different tabs all day long, we can easily replicate that without too much hassle. So I think I go into a little bit more here. Let me switch back to presentation. All right, now we're back here. So I showed it in use there, and you can access the overall, if you're accessing the object and then the actions, then the object has references to related pages and everything. That was one thing I wanted to show off. I forgot about that. The directory structure for the page is essentially supposed to follow the relative URL for the pages as well. So home page would be on /home, logout page would be /logout. For the admin pages, the space would be /admin. This would be /settings, /general settings, /call settings, /audio, whatever the case may be. If all these are on the same different URL structure, then they can go in the same package. And that makes it fairly easy to figure out which package you need to go to figure out what page you need to modify. So if you look at the URL structure, you can get to at least a package level and just have to figure out which class it is within that package. That's the file you want to mess with. Hoping that makes sense. Because like this should be the call settings page .html, and this would be the audio tab or the video tab. And that way you can know which file you're supposed to mess around in, instead of just having it all dumped into the call settings page. Because you can easily put all that stuff with the audio and video into one class, but then you'll have a gigantic class that has thousands of lines in it, and you need to figure out which area within that class you need to put it. Whereas if you do it this way, you break it up, you're going to keep each file down to like 200 to 300-ish lines, which I personally like to keep all my files around 300 lines. And that's much easier to search through than 1,000. So there's that bit. Let's go back to the presentation. So complex forms. I'm sure some of you have some very complex forms, such as initial user logins for, like, if you're creating an account in an online bank, or filling out tax forms, or testing tax forms on websites. Those get very large and they're very complex, and it's like one gigantic form that has 300 fields. And what are you supposed to do about those? Well, it's very simple. You do what the devs do, and you break it up. However, you break it up smartly. You can always break it apart horribly and you'll regret it later, but if you break it up within the same pieces as a developer would, the different form section, mainly it will be the different form sections that you would break up into different pieces. Excuse me. Mainly be the different form sections that you would break it up into. So let me switch over to code. So here we have a complex form page. Let me go. So here we have the complex form page. Here we have two different sections, user info and spouse info. So here we can have the user info fill all these different fields out, spouse fill out the same fields that you need to as well. These are just really, this is a method name that I use for this example code that I highly do not recommend at all in actual production code. but this would be like fill out username, or fill out first name, fill out last name, fill out username, fill out password, fill out address, city, state. You get the drill. And what I'm doing here is I just have a map of values, which I'll be showing off later, actually, how I do that. And if I don't, someone remind me that I have to show off a map of values. But here we have the different forms again. So spouse info section just extends the base page. It doesn't need to extend the parent page, the section that it lives in, because we're not going to really be using the spouse info section in and of itself. It's always going to be used essentially within the complex form base page. Back to presentation. Boom. So already did, that was a bonus tip actually with the directory structure to be the relative URL of the page. If you are lucky enough, or if you're lucky enough to be using C#, there is a partial class that you can use. So you can have different sections of a form defined in their own partial class file. And C# will just render it as one gigantic one when it builds the project. But from a development standpoint, it'll be in separate files. And that is a pretty awesome feature that I like, especially for test automation. Developers hate it because it allows them to build really complex objects, which are generally bad from a development standpoint. From a test automation standpoint, I really like them. And all of this, all the things I showed up there is to reduce the mental overhead that you have with anything, because you can easily use the URL of the page to go to the package or directory structure of your project to get to the page that you need to modify, or at least a set of files if there's multiple tabs or a very complex form. And then you just need to look at which section is related to it or which tab it is, and you're not having to Command B, Command B, Command B, which is the IntelliJ IDEA shortcut to go to the definition of the, go to the definition of this method, go to the definition of this method, go to the definition of this method, to try to find out what a test is actually doing and from the source code perspective. And by keeping it all within the proper structure and the proper files, there's just a whole lot of less mental overhead where you have to figure out, okay, wait, I named it WS, which means it's in a different file or folder structure. Don't do it. You'll regret it in the long run. So the less time you're spending thinking about stuff, it also means you have less time wasted. Now, continuing on with less time wasted, you should also consider how you're doing waiting within your test, within like Selenium test frameworks, because it is very important, because this is where most, I would go with like 80% of tests fail within this waiting portion of it. Either waiting for the wrong element or waiting too long or too little. Most tests would fail in this portion, even if it's correct locators and everything. So there's three different types of waiting. There's implicit, explicit, and fluent. So the short summary between them is that implicit waiting, you set at the very beginning of the test, and it will, Selenium will by default wait a quarter of a second for every driver call that occurs. So if you do a driver.find element, it will try every quarter of a second until whatever time you set as the maximum limit is. And if it times out, it returns false. If it finds it, then it returns the object. Explicit, you have to specify action and an element, and it's done on a per element basis. And that also tries every quarter of a section until the action is completed or it times out. The Fluent waiting is you specify the action and the element, I'm missing a comma there, and a polling period. So it's the exact same as explicit, but you can specify how often it retries that action. So implicit is generally good for web apps, except for the fact that there's generally frameworks that are built specifically for web apps. The biggest one is Protractor for Angular. So if you're doing Angular development, you'd be using the Protractor framework because it has all the built-in implicit waits for the different actions, and it knows how to actually ask Angular if the item's loaded or not. Instead of you polling for it, it will ask Angular instead. Now it is also used for slow development environments, especially if you're using like a cloud provider. So you're sending your tests to a cloud provider, which is then using a tunnel to get back into an internal system to then find the pages and everything. I get that. It's about the best only real use case for it. And a lot of you, I'm sure, are using actual cloud providers. So we'll go into how do you properly use implicit waiting. Fluent waiting, quite honestly, how often do you care how often you poll for something? And because of that reason, it's generally you don't ever really need to use it. There are certain cases where it might be beneficial to use it, such as you know that it's going to take 10 minutes before a database process runs or an ETL process runs before you can get results. So you might as well just try every minute for a while to get up to those 10 minutes. So the explicit waiting, though, is the gold standard that you want to use, because the explicit waiting is when you wait specifically for an element to do something, either be there, not be there, find a bunch of elements with the same selector, and that's the only time that Selenium is going to slow down. So, and the reason why that's good is that if you have the implicit wait on for everything, if something times out, like you get a 404 error page, and it's still implicitly waiting for a login button to show up, and the login button is set to, you have it set to like 3 seconds to find that login button, or the implicit wait would be 3 seconds. It would spend you would have essentially be landed on a 404 page and waiting for 3 seconds to get a response saying that it's not even, you're not going to go anywhere. Multiply that by the number of times you go to that login page, multiply that by the times that the number of tests you have, the number of environments you're testing against, that's minutes upon minutes, 20, 30 minutes easy of waiting to get past a 404 error page to tell you that there's an error page, which is just terrible, just waiting that long. So some people might think like, oh, we can use implicit and explicit at the same time, except that is not going to be a good time for you. And the reason is because you enter an unknown state, specifically with the remote WebDriver. So what that means is that during the implicit waiting time that's going on, you could jump to the explicit waiting time frame. And while you're in the explicit time waiting loop, it might jump back to an implicit one or start up a new implicit one. Because the remote WebDriver does not actually specify which loop it's actually in. Jim Evans, the creator and maintainer of the C# bindings for Selenium, he did a test with this, and he had a 3-second implicit waiting period and a 3-second explicit waiting period, which ended up taking 15 minutes to complete just due to the number of loops that had occurred. So therefore, using them both at the same time is a terrible idea, because instead of waiting for, what you're thinking of 6 seconds or even 9 seconds, you could be waiting there for 15 minutes. which is way too long. So that means in theory you can have infinite loops. So if your environment is slow though, and you need to generally have an implicit wait on, but you know this one particular element is going to take a very long time, there is a proper way to do it, at least now with Selenium above 3.4. You can turn the implicit wait off and then restart it after your explicit wait. So this is how you would do it. Disregard the scroll bars, there is nothing else on this. So here we just have a simple Boolean that's saying, is element visible now? We're passing in a locator and we're passing in a timeout. Here we're turning off the implicit wait. We're going to try this expected conditions, find the visibility of the element located by the locator, and apply the driver, which is actually going to try to find it. If it's displayed, once that's done, whatever happens there, if it finds it, it changes the result to true. If it doesn't find it, it's still false, and then it will reapply the implicit wait back on. And then return you the true or false statement. And obviously this is going to be used all over your test. It's probably going to live in your base test page, or your base test class, sorry. And you can use it whenever you need to test to see if an element, if like the modal window pops up, or like a chat button finally shows up after a few seconds on a page, whatever the case may be. But there's an easy way to maintain it and handle it. If you know you're using it pretty much whenever you decide to use an explicit wait, you can obviously change this method to have it be the explicit wait. Well, whenever you execute the explicit wait, go ahead, switch to turn off the implicit, and then reapply it after it's done. In terms of team synergy, this means that there's no odd waiting everywhere. Because everyone has their own different style of how they like to do waiting. By doing it this way, you can standardize it, especially if it's only in one location. That means you have to spend more work to do it wrong. So that generally prevents people from doing it wrong. And it means that you have less time debugging coworkers' code. Man, missing that GIF. I'll play that GIF at the end. Someone remind me to play the GIF at the end for debugging. So, moving onwards, we have everyone's favorite section, which I believe we have a poll for test data management. And my question is, does everyone love test data management? And we'll give it here about, I don't know, 45, 50 seconds. Which that means essentially when Paul decides to end the poll. We got a bunch of people that actually like test data management. And same number of people hate it. So, oh, that's perfect. It went back to the presentation. So, oh wait, that's right. It's not really that fun. So, for those of you that don't know, test data management is figuring out which data was used for a particular test and keeping track of all that stuff. So, we're going to make it easier. How does that sound? I hope that sounds good, because I'm just going to do it anyways. So, the pattern that I have essentially keep using over and over again, I'm calling it the modular pattern because I haven't found any real reference to actually do it this way. Because according to proper development patterns, this is the opposite of proper development. So, but there is a reason for it, and that's because the reason for it is because most development projects, you're building one project. You're building one site, one website, one application, whatever. Whereas for test frameworks, every single test is essentially its own little mini program. So you want to make something that's easy to apply to every single test whenever you need to. So I like to think of it like modular houses in that fashion. You're going to get this house, and you can do whatever customizations you want. Oh, you want granite on counters? Go ahead, have granite on the counters. Everything else is plug and play. whenever you see fit, however you see fit. So here we have an example. My voice does not like this. So we're going to break it down into a couple pieces. So here you have this user, which was the user that was for the test. And it's set at a class level, so all the different tests will use the same, reference the same user object. New user, reuse equals true. Now, reuse equals true is sort of weird there. And here it's essentially going to say, get a new user, and go ahead and either do a DB call or an API call to get an existing user. Now, you might be asking, why are we static? Well, I'm doing this because I say, why statically type in values? Because if that user gets removed, that test next time is going to fail. And quite honestly, computers are faster than us. So the computer can easily do the API call, grab a user that matches certain criteria, because you can always specify whatever criteria you need to as another parameter for that user object. And sorry about that. And then use it for the test. Here we're doing a set birthday, and we're setting it to be a specific age. What we can say is to test that they're over the age of 48 or something like that. Here's the actual test that's doing all the user interactions. And this is following the Fluent pattern. So all the methods are going into one another. So that's essentially just one line of code there. Go to login with username, user.username, user.password, go to settings, update birthday, user.birthdate, which is what we just set. And then the final call is the DB validate user, and that's going to actually do a either DB call or API call to validate that the user object that I have currently matches the one that's now in the DB as it should be. So to see the code sort of stuff, actually I think I have the code in this class, in this presentation. So if you caught it, I actually did have a statically typed birth date there. So you caught me red-handed there, right after I literally said, why statically type stuff? So we're going to have a new method called set birth date, open and close parentheses. And we're going to go into detail about that. So here we have the original set birth date, and it passes in a data object. And what it's going to do is there is a map that contains different properties. And here we're going to say that the birth date is going to get changed. So save the birth date as a map, so we can always reference it later. And we can then use the apply the date to the new birth date. And here we have the random method, so open and close parentheses, and it will just generate a new random date and call the previous method. What that looks like in code, let's jump over to it. All right, let's see here. Here we have the birth date, new password, old password. Let me just show you. I'm going to show you the actual set new password. So here we have a set new password method. We're just going to pass in a new password, and it's going to save the password that we currently have in the object map called change values. And then we're going to set the password for this user to be the new password. An application. Nope, where am I? Okay. So here we have, let me delete that. So here we're setting, we're getting a new user up here. Reuse is false for this one, so it's going to generate a brand new user object. And here we're going to set a new password, and it's just going to create a random alphanumeric alpha character as the password, and it's going to save it to the user object. So here we can use change password, string old password, and string new password is going to be what the method call we're going to be using. So user dot get old password, user dot password, and that will this method here, get old password, is going to return, go to the map, get the password, and get the value of that from right up here. Here's the hash map for the change value, so it's pretty quick lookup. But everything involving the user is going to be stored within this file. So get user, get password, get birth date. You can store whatever you want in here. Here you can see if I create a just generic user without any data, it generates all the required information: first name, last name, username, password, and it's just random alphabetic characters for it. In your actual code, you can make super customized versions of this and specify different lengths of characters and everything. Alphanumeric, you can use different faker libraries to generate this information for you as well. Man, my voice is dying today.
Hang in there.
So, yes, I know.
If you guys don't know, Andrew's hanging with us today. He's in a place that has no AC and it's 86 degrees outside. So so he's really struggling through this. I appreciate your endurance there.
No worries. We're almost done here. So to reiterate, we can do a whole lot of weird stuff with this. So at this point, go ahead and begin typing in your questions. I just have a couple other slides to wrap up, and then we'll jump into a short Q&A. Now for the test data management part, we're going to use one of my favorite tools, which is Elasticsearch to the rescue. So here I have a whole bunch of code here. So here we're getting the new user object reused here. It's going to get a previous one. This would be in the test teardown. So when you're wrapping up the test, you can get the method, you can get the test name itself, and with this little bit of code here, you can specify the local time, so you know exactly when the test was executed, you know the test name that was executed, and you know what user record was used, and everything that was in the user object will be stored within Elasticsearch as a JSON document. So that means, what that means is that you can easily search for it within Elasticsearch. You can search for it by test name. So if you know that, oh, this test failed, what were some of the different values that switched between different records? Because maybe it fails on birth dates that happen to be in the year 1980 or something like that. And you can see that, oh, the result, all these tests failed, and you can find patterns and everything. You can go by user record. So, hey, this user keeps failing. What happened to this? And maybe somebody did a direct DB manipulation and affected a user record. And you can easily find that, oh, hey, this user record gets used in all these places, and it made all these tests fail. Let's delete this user and run all these tests again, because it looks like it's just a user that's just was created poorly or modified heavily. You can look through the Elasticsearch database for any data that was changed, specific particular values that you're looking for. Maybe for an instance, this new version of the build is failing whenever somebody updates their name to the Greek alphabet for whatever reason, or whatever else information you store into it. So this is the part where I'm going to have fun with Paul, because I'm going to push stuff off to him. So if you want more, and I have obviously a lot more topics. We can easily do a few more webinars. So message Paul, not me, for these topics. Using Git for multiple projects in different environments. Switching seamlessly between API and UI calls within your tests. So if it can obviously run faster on the API, go ahead and use the API calls. Occasionally try doing it from a UI call just to test it from a UI, but obviously go the faster route all the time. And then my favorite one is leveling up your development skills. And shameless plug, I have a book that will be releasing in the next few months called Selenium Above and Beyond.
I think you mean to have your presentation on, just real quick. Did you mean to have your presentation on to show the book?
Yes. Well, yeah. Not really. Let me just switch over to it just so it has a URL. It is literally going to get changed in like the next 48 hours. So, and it goes over all those different topics. So now it is my favorite time for any questions and answer time. So let me go check out questions.
This is perfect. So listen, I'll feed you some questions so you don't have to look through it, okay? I had a couple that I was thinking of during this, but I'm not your target audience here. I don't know. Mine may not be interesting, but there's a couple here that I thought were interesting. So Manolo asks, is there any particular reason why you use Camelcase for naming classes?
Not really, none. I think it was just a holdover from C# world.
Yeah, it's a convention to do that in C#.
Yeah, it all depends on what. Yeah. I mean, it's whatever convention you follow at your company. I just did it because I started off with C# and I think it stuck over a bit too long.
Yeah. So let's see. Here's one. Katan says, hi, Andrew. What I feel is explicit wait also allows you to set the polling period. So is there any other difference between explicit wait and fluent wait?
No, that's the only difference is the fact that you can specify it. There is another weirder one that has fluent style waits, which is method chaining to do really complex actions, but I haven't really seen it in use.
Okay, so here's one from Chong, and Chong asks, we have a keyword-driven existing framework. The code is very messy, and some files contain 46,000 lines of code. Management is not willing to recreate a new framework. What do you recommend to make it much cleaner code?
So this, I can actually probably do a whole presentation in and of itself. So within those files, there's probably a pattern that has developed on how methods are named, how objects are located, and all sorts of stuff. I would heavily use regex expressions to extract the information you need from each section, each topic, and then paste it into their own files. So it will essentially be like, I know I actually wrote a Python script that did regex expressions to convert the old framework into somewhat of a new framework to find all the different methods, locators, and such, and paste it in this particular format to modify it. So the Python script ran, and it read through a C# file, but then messed around with all the files, and then I had to go into Visual Studio and like import all those new files that just got generated. But it let me process, hundreds of files easily.
Yeah, okay, and someone wanted to remind you to do the debug GIF.
The debug GIF, that's right. That's right.
So thank you, Tyler, for that.
Works better if I find it. Oh my God. Let's see here.
So while you're doing that, Laura mentions that Google coding standards say to use Camelcase in Java, and she quotes google.github.io/styleguide/javaguide.html, and I appreciate that, Laura, and it's nice to talk to you. We talked earlier today in another way. And I think the styling guide I would imagine from Microsoft says the same thing for C#. So Yeah, I think they're style guides, but you don't have to follow it. I don't think there's anything in either of those two languages that require that.
No, nothing forces it. There we go. I'm gonna debug why that failed completely. That's how I feel about whenever I have to debug one of my coworkers' code.
Someone asked about dynamic failures. Should dynamic failures be considered in a test case? VJ asked about that.
I guess I don't understand what you mean by dynamic failures.
I'm not sure either. So VJ, if you can clarify what you mean by dynamic, he says dynamic failed should be considered in a test case. If you can clarify that, we'll try to answer it. We got, you know what, we actually need to close up the questions here. We got to make sure to get that gift card out. So Andrew, I want to thank you for your time here, for doing this. It's been a terrific presentation. People are asking, hey, is this going to be recorded and available to us? It absolutely will. I try to have the recording available within 24 hours. Usually it's much earlier than that, but I got to be reasonable here and try to get it out when I can. A lot of other stuff going on. And that will also be sent to you in a follow-up email, whether you attended or not. So you'll have a link there, and it will also be embedded into that email. Once again, really appreciate all of your work here, Andrew. It's been terrific. And I'm going to, and I like working with you. You know, guys, sometimes you get the chance to work with people like Andrew. He's a good guy. He's easy to work with, easy to talk to, easy to collaborate with, and a good teacher. I learned a lot today. So you guys should be able to see the slide that says who's going to win. Is that what you can see, Andrew?
No, I think I just see the coding, the main one still.
Okay, let me see what's going on here. Close this out. Let's see how this sharing works. There's always something going on with the sharing, right?
Yep, it's always the case.
Here we go. I've got to make me presenter. There we go. Here we go. All right, I have been made the presenter. The main screen. Yes, show my screen. And then we're going to do this. All right, now you can see it. Okay, who's going to win? Who's going to win? So I actually have a GIF, a sound in here. Let's see if it works. All right, so the winner is Jennifer B. So Jennifer B was on the webinar today. I believe there was only one Jennifer B. Look for a gift card through email from Amazon for $50. Congratulations. Thanks for being here today for that. Everyone, please remember that we are offering a 3-day Selenium training. Andrew is doing this through Beaufort Fairmont. Contact me. Go to the URL down there, bftft.com/selenium-training or beaufortfairmont.com/selenium-training. And it's a wonderful course. We've had a lot of good luck with it with customers already. If you want to talk test automation, if you've got challenges, reach out to me. We're always interested in helping you out with that here at Beaufort Fairmont. Once again, thank you, Andrew, and everyone have a wonderful day today.
Thank you for having me. Have a great one.
Thanks, you too.